And of course, we will be collaborating with our Peter Maritzburg studios today and engineering studios, brother Suhail. Well, that's your Let's Chat team this evening. And of course, Let's Chat is produced by Hajra Kota. Our topic for discussion this evening is empowerment versus EQ versus you, and our very special guest is Ambassador Dr. Mehrin Mia, who is a Global Goodwill Ambassador awarded by the GIA USA, affiliated to the United Nations, holding dual honorary doctorates in humanities, that's in psychology, education, and humanitarianism. Well, it is Friday night, so one's going to be getting tongue tied. But we say Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to Dr. Mehrin Mia.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Mehrin, Jazakallah khair for joining me on the program this evening. How's Peter Maritzburg this evening?
Alhamdulillah, it's so lovely to be here. And Alhamdulillah, we're actually doing very well. Weather's pretty good. The storm that was supposed to hit us did not hit us. So, Shukr, Alhamdulillah, all is good. All is good. Jazakallah for having me.
Excellent, excellent. It's an absolute pleasure. Now, just to introduce our guest to you, Mehrin, through her international and local work in education and resource training, has earned multiple global awards. The award for Global Academic Excellence Award in 2023. Her most recent accolade granted to her in August 2024 is the Woman of South Africa Awards nomination, received in 4 different categories, namely education and training, leadership, health and wellness, and social development. Ms. Mia is the founder of the MIA program, a program she designed to help every individual to motivate, inspire, and advance themselves to the best version for their life's journey. She is an NLP master and a CBT practitioner, being an international award-winning educationist and transformational mental health wellness advocate who is passionate about empowering of women and children, youth, and humanity. Now, Dr. Mia, when I seen founder of the MIA program, I thought it's a Mia program. Then I realized it's motivate, inspire, and advance. Okay, choose. It's Friday evening. We want to sort of wind down or tone down. And
Yeah, of
look
course,
in
but I
fancy
must
words.
interrupt you, Brother Faisal, and say to you, so MIA is named after my dad, Alhamdulillah, but it is Mia. So if you don't want to say Mia, it's all the better.
All the better, of course. Absolutely. Okay. Now, our topic for discussion is empowerment versus EQ versus you. Now, it's a bit of for me, it's a bit of a complicated topic, but there must be a reason why you chose this particular topic. But before you tell us and explain this topic to us, explain to us what is EQ, and then you can say to us, why it's empowerment versus EQ versus you. You means me.
Sure. Yes, of course. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajeem. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. So our topic is empowerment versus EQ versus you, as you've said. And EQ, we are talking about emotional intelligence. Literally, it's emotional intelligence. How intelligent are you about your emotions? And if you have to ask, why did I choose this topic? And yes, it might seem complicated, but let me explain. So empowerment, for example, is a word we all know. We use it, we hear it. It's a word that's everywhere all the time. And emotional intelligence is also something that's not very new anymore. We hear about it everywhere. It's used also very often. But when we think empowerment, sometimes if we can ask all our listeners, if I say the word empowerment, what are you thinking of? If I say emotional intelligence, what are you thinking of? Maybe you are envisioning a kind of a workshop that's happening, or maybe you're envisioning a certificate that you may get, or you're learning something from a speaker. In some way or the other, you are having this connotation of what it may mean for you. But very rarely do we actually consider these concepts aligned together. We always seem to think they're separated or they're separate concepts. And sometimes for one person, empowered may just mean once I'm empowered with an empowerment certificate, I'm done. For another, it may mean if I know I'm intelligent enough about my emotions and I have an emotional intelligence certificate, then I'm done. But that's what I'm talking about today, is to tell you, you are not done. We are never done. Remember, even with us, our hadith teaches us that, learning is from the cradle to a grave, inshallah. So we are never, ever done. Islam is a way of life, and life is itself a journey that we are on. So being empowered through learning about ourselves and then growing through knowing, how do I control myself? How do I control my emotions? How do I become more intelligent about my self-development? How do I grow me? And these are lessons that we have along our journey. And this journey of lessons that we are on is how we empower ourselves emotionally. So it may be separated in the topic, but together standing separately, that's why it's separated. But to be holistically growing, inshallah, that is why it combines itself as one unit.
Mhm. No, in fact, I love the topic. I know it's highly coincidental that I just received a little poster where a sister who is 80 years old, I repeat, she's 80 years old, she just completed becoming a Hafiz of the Holy Quran. Now, there's
Alhamdulillah.
a Jalsa, etc. And I'm just thinking, it's a Hif Jalsa, and sister is 80 years old. Now, as you say, you seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. You don't stop. You don't stop. And I think it's quite coincidental that this poster came in, as you are speaking as well. In any event, having discussed and explained, why we are discussing this particular topic, let's break it down. Let's discuss the concept of empowerment. What do you believe this means, and how do you interpret empowerment?
So, Brother Faisal, I've had many people think, and some actually believe that, when you become empowered, you actually become a little bit superior to other people. If you look at people in work areas, sometimes when they attend certain courses, they come back and they suddenly become a little bit dictatorial. And some have even said to me and to other people, I don't want people around me to become empowered, because I see when people become empowered, they lose respect sometimes. After they become empowered, this is not who they become. And this is not the case at all. For me, true empowerment is, especially as I teach it, true empowerment is actually your self development. It is your self growth and your self empowerment. It's all about you. It's you and
Mhm.
you and you. So, you becoming empowered is you developing yourself to become a greater version of you. So, for example, as a woman who is a mom juggling a career, right? Being empowered doesn't mean that you neglect your duties to your child because you need to focus on your career. Nothing like that. No. Empowerment would actually mean that you would be growing yourself to a level where, as a mother, you're learning to excel in your role, and then your child will see this and grow from it. And as a career woman, you're also empowering yourself so that you can grow to your fullest potential. So you're holistically becoming better in the person that you are, no matter what role you are playing. You enhance you from better, for the better from within yourself. And as we know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala always tells us how important our niyat and our intentions are. So if you're becoming empowered, your niyat is also very key. If you're doing it for the correct reason, then alhamdulillah, if it will work for you, and you will feel better from within, and you will become more engaged with who you are as you go through your journey. And if it's for the wrong intention, then how do you benefit then? Because how do you then benefit those around you too? It's your niyat also that is very key. But that is where the concept of empowerment for me sits. It's for you and growing you as a self, inshallah.
Mhm. No, I'm glad that you just clarified that, because many of us don't really understand what's meant by empowerment. We just think that we were deprived of something, we're now getting it. I mean, I'm talking in the form of education or opportunities, etc., etc., and we're being empowered. But I think you're now looking at it from a different concept, from a different aspect, or from a different angle, and I think it makes a bit more sense than what I understood it. But how then would you describe or explain what emotional intelligence is? Now, I know I asked you earlier this, but just for some purpose of clarification, please.
Yes, for sure. So, emotional intelligence actually refers to your ability to understand your emotions, to manage your emotions, how to express yourself effectively. So it's not just about you only. When you become emotionally intelligent, you actually know and understand and manage these things in other people too. You can notice it in someone else, so you know how to react to it properly. So it involves you actually being more aware of your emotions. I recognize this in me. I know how to control it with me. Therefore, I'm witnessing and knowing and acknowledging it in someone else. You recognize these emotions of other people too. And when you use this to understand yourself, you will eventually learn through being intelligent about emotions. How can I use this to navigate my interactions with other people, my relationships with people, my social interactions? So practicing this emotional intelligence is also key, because that will allow you to recognize your behavior, your emotions. If there is a pattern, for example, you get to know what that is. But it also then helps you to better understand what the actions are, what your reactions need to be. So some examples may be, you could be somebody who's really got self-control together. When something you are facing is upsetting you, what you need to be doing. You know how to show empathy to other people without feeling too much. You know how to take criticism very well. These are small things that are about you. But at the end of the day, it's all about how intelligent am I about me. Do my emotions actually control me, or do I control them? And being emotionally intelligent allows for you to learn, how do I control my emotions instead of it being the other way around, inshallah.
Now, I just want to digress. What is traditional intelligence? And does emotional intelligence differ from traditional intelligence?
Look, emotional intelligence is all about you as a person. Everybody would be different. Traditional intelligence will be what you might inherit from somebody, or maybe a pattern of behavior that you will see or learn from, and then that becomes you. Is that really you, though, is where you have to learn. And that's where becoming intelligent about this becomes important. You can't just be following something without understanding what is the value for me. Is there any value in it for me? And that is why being intelligent about your own self, your own emotion, before just conforming to what an emotional may be from somebody else traditionally, and inheriting that, you need to know you. You need to empower you. You need to know you. You need to grow you. And sometimes we're not saying learning behavior patterns or learning emotions and how people react to their emotions, learning from them might not necessarily be something bad, but it could be an eye opener for you to become more aware that if I'm seeing this in somebody else and I see it in a negative light, why would I want to actually practice the same? So being intelligent would help you to know this is not what I think is good for me in my persona, in my characteristic traits, so I therefore do not wish to be the same. And you would learn characteristic traits of what you can do to be better for you in your version of you.
Dr. Mary Mia, we need to take an ad break. So we'll take an ad break. We'll continue on the other side of this. Do stay with us.
Sure.
Why wait for Black Friday? The biggest sale starts now.
R300.
Save a whopping 10,000 Rand on the Hisense 100-inch TV, now only 39,999.
Enjoy 3,000 Rand off the Samsung 70-inch UHD TV, now just 9,999. Plus the Samsung 85-inch UHD TV is only 17,999, saving you 5,000 Rand.
Don't let these deals slip away. Simplex Radio, the name you can trust.
You've spent all that. Now, you need to tell people about your business. Advertising and marketing, it's what we do. Listen to this.
Absolutely amazing. It's been my first experience working with a radio station. So you don't actually know what to expect. And you also feel like, you're just going to be a number. But at Radio Al Ansar, I was just not a number. I think the support that we've got has been amazing. You guys have been absolutely amazing. You guys have opened doors for us that a couple months ago I wouldn't have thought possible. I think the support for me has been the greatest. It's so widespread because you guys are on YouTube Live, Facebook Live, not just radio based. We've got people in Johannesburg listening to you guys. So it's so widespread. We're getting that marketing.
Get in touch with our sales department on 031 208 1601. Speak directly to your target audience.
Want to tantalize those taste buds? Halton's has you covered. From freshly baked treats to imported confectionery that brings international flavors right to your door. Indulge in our daily food menu, home industry goodies, and those household brands that you love, now with global twists. Visit Halton's at 358 Brickfield Road, open till 9 p.m. daily, or call us at 031 207 6108. Halton's, where every bite is a delight.
The Al Ansar Foundation, Dawah, Tarbiyah, and Education, establishing the foundations of Islamic civilization in South Africa.
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور أحب الوفي الأمين أغر فأهل الوفاء.
Yes, you're listening to Let's Chat on Radio Al Ansar with myself, FAIZAL MJ SULEMAN, and of course, our special guest this evening is Dr. Mehrin Mia, who is an ambassador, a global goodwill ambassador. And of course, our topic for discussion is empowerment versus EQ versus you. This is an interactive program. You're most welcome to send us your questions or your contributions to this topic via WhatsApp on 060-9041-056. Yes, 060-9041-056. Yes, Peter Marisburg, let's hear from you. This is also a broadcast from our Peter Marisburg studio as well. It's a joint broadcast, Durban and Peter Marisburg. So let's get those WhatsApps rolling. Merin, breaking down EQ, what do you think are the main factors about EQ that contribute to us as we are?
Sure. I think this is actually where the lessons start for this evening. The others were more conceptualized. So when we have to break down emotional intelligence, there are 4 pillars, right? And that is the self-awareness pillar, there's the social awareness pillar, there's self-management, and of course there's relationship management. And I did touch on the self-awareness a little bit earlier. So self-awareness, it's about you being very aware of yourself, and the social awareness is about how you being aware of yourself shows you how you relate to other people. And then, of course, your actions towards yourself would be, how do I manage myself in every situation? And then you have these actions towards others, which influence what your relationships are going to become. But remember that ultimately, emotional intelligence is all about this level of awareness that you will have, because that kind of translates your awareness into action. And when all these factors of this emotional intelligence are then considered, they all actually influence your behavior, they influence your language, they influence all of your patterns that make you up, and then they influence your performance. When I say performance, I'm talking about your actions versus your reactions. When you talk self-awareness, and I'm touching on this more because, Brother Faisal, that is key for me in terms of any form of empowerment, in terms of you growing yourself in any way. You not knowing about you will never allow you to learn there's something about you that needs to develop, or there's something negative about you. You have to be aware. So self-awareness refers to that understanding. I understand myself enough to know my emotions. I understand myself to know that specific triggers impact my thought, they impact my behavior, they impact my performance. So regarding how it impacts you as a person, as the question was that you asked me, self-awareness then is the skill that you will have. Do I reflect on myself every day? So listeners can ask themselves, do you even make time for yourself in your daily life where you take 2 minutes to reflect on yourself? Are you curious about your experiences, and what is that doing for you? Are you self-aware enough that you ask yourself questions, or are you maybe too comfortable in a zone that you don't want to know these things? Really, we hardly ever do we actually want truly know ourselves, Brother Faisal. We never really do. And if you are a self-aware person, then you will acknowledge that learning is always possible, especially with regard to yourself. And I'm sure Brother Faisal as well, I know I am, and I know many other people, we are lifelong learners. And this is what we're trying to say. Knowledge is always going to be needed. You're going to always learn about yourself. And the more you learn about yourself, the more you'll be able to manage you. And when I say manage you, I mean manage yourself. So regulate your behaviors. So self-manage is about, what am I going to do about something? So for example, if something is going wrong, somebody is saying something that continuously nags you or worries you, are you going to remain calm, or are you going to emotionally act about it? Are you going to let the circumstance overtake you, or are you going to learn, how do I control the circumstance and control myself in it so my reaction becomes better and I achieve my goals? These are things that make you aware of yourself so that you can manage yourself more effectively, because that's when you learn traits on, how do I manage my social skills? How do I manage myself with people? How do I build my relationships so that I don't actually damage them, even though something may be negative as a transpiration, but you actually know, how do I deal with it so that I don't lose? So these are the things that make up this emotional intelligence in more depth. But everyone needs to always reflect. Reflection is key. Introspection is key. Being honest with ourselves is key, because Brother Faisal, that's the other thing. We can always want to be empowered. We can always say, as people are listening to us, they're going to say, but I want to be empowered and I want to learn about myself. I want to be intelligent about my emotions. It's well and good to want to do that. But are you wanting to be honest with yourself? Are you open to being honest about things? Are you able to ask these difficult questions of yourself? Because that is key for you to learn about you, be aware about you, and then learn, how do I assess these things about me? And that's how you learn how these things actually impact you as an individual, inshallah.
How many of us are willing to accept that we have an issue? I mean, many of us are in denial. Many of us just take the ostrich policy, etc. How does one deal with that?
I've seen this often, and I see it daily. I see it in children. I see it in parents. I see it in adults, in grandparents. Society is built up of every one of us comes to some point, whether it might not be daily, but at some point in our lives, there is something about us that is very negative. And very often when something happens or someone points that negative out, we become more defensive than we become wary of this good criticism of us. And that defensive mode actually makes us become someone that we don't want to be. And after we've reacted to something in a negative form, how has it happened? And many listeners will resonate with this. How often has it happened that you said something because your emotion took over, or you behaved in a manner where your emotion took over, and all of a sudden, after a while, you said, but that wasn't me. I would never have ordinarily done that. I would never have ordinarily said that. Things don't normally get so heated up within me where I lose control and I don't know what to say and I say the wrong things. So this is where it's important for us to understand, when I want to be empowered, when I want to be intelligent about myself and my emotions, am I willing to be honest about myself in the process? Do I want to learn the negatives that are there about me, or am I too comfortable in my zone that I don't want that anymore? I'm just happy to be who I am. And the key for me is, if you are honest with yourself and want to grow, the negatives about you that you will find are not going to be the ones that consume you. You will actually grow yourself to a point where the negatives become your stepping stones. They're not your obstacles anymore. And that is why we try and teach people, even if you are somebody facing a circumstance that's really difficult, it's a difficult circumstance you're in where you feel like you're never going to get through this. But if you take time and you sit back and you think, how many times in your life thus far have you felt that you felt, I got to this point and I just can't I'm never going to get through this. It's too much for me now. And yet somehow you got through it. That means there's a certain level of empowerment already within you. There's already a certain level of resilience within you. And why not tap into that to grow it? And when you tap into that to grow it, when somebody does identify something that is negative about you, or you yourself identify, wait, there's something about me I don't like, it doesn't become an obstacle. It becomes something that you're willing to work with to better who you can be. That is where the key structure would lie, and that these negatives don't dictate who we become or control us. We learn, how do I take control of these things about me that are negative so that I can make it better for myself and others too.
And what are some of the emotions which are linked to empowerment?
There's so many, Brother Faisal, I wish we had a workshop on this, but empowerment is like, if I'm having this feeling of strength and confidence and control over my life and my surroundings, then obviously I'm taking control of things. So it's like the sense of having the ability to make a decision, because something, for example, can go wrong. And all of a sudden you feel like, oh, how am I going to make this choice? How am I going to make this decision? And then all of a sudden you realize, wait, take 2 minutes to first think about things. And then you realize you have this level of confidence that rises inside you, where you're able to build over that and you say, wait, I'm going to control this. I can take out these things. I can achieve my goal. I can find my sense of self-determination to grow through what I'm feeling right now, and I will make the correct decision later. But it's that moment of where I find that inner strength to pause when it's necessary to pause. So you'll have the feeling of the strength and the confidence and the control measures kick in. That's when you realize, I have this empowerment within me. And this is why I use the scenario I used just now. Because if you can relate to a point in your life, any one of our listeners can do this, and you think back to when I felt I could never have gotten through that, but you know what, I did. I don't, and most of the time we may just say to somebody, I don't even know how I got through it, but you did. You know why? Because there was a certain level of strength and confidence inside you never knew you actually had. So those main emotions that you have that fuel that power inside you sometimes could also be the feeling of, I like watching this, or I listen to something that really helps me. Some people would look to Quran, some people would look to dhikr, some people would look to listening to other people or motivational talks. But I trust in what I'm learning, therefore I'm growing through myself. So when people feel, for example, if you see people feeling a certain level of admiration, they feel this emotion of admiration for a leader, for example, they tend to be inclined to do what that leader does or what that leader would like them to do. And that becomes independent of what the consequence may be. For example, if you meet somebody brand new and you have this level of fear and, oh my gosh, what are they going to think about me? So all of these emotions that I'm talking about, if you hear me, is actually something I'm saying is related to your bodily language as well. So you must understand that when I'm talking emotion, I'm talking a strength, I'm talking confidence, I'm talking you being in control, but I'm talking about your senses. I'm talking about whether you like, you don't like. And these are things that are very personal. You have got to know you and be, again, self-aware of where these come from, what emotions, and then you can understand for you as an individual. And this goes back to the you in our topic. This then shows you how that is all linked to you and who you are. Do they impact you as a person? Do they control you, or are you able to take control of that and respond to situations accordingly? So emotions are very directly linked through to empowerment, depending on you and your persona and your characteristic traits.
Now, if I recall correctly, I think you've explained EQ as having 4 C's. Now, can you elaborate for us what are those 4 C's? Why is this the case?
So alhamdulillah, yes, I did. There were 1 or 2 workshops that we did previously for this. In totality, Brother Faisal, I'm going to just say there are 7 C's, right? This is where if somebody wants to take a pen and paper, you're welcome to do that. So the 7 C's I'm talking about is, first we're talking about the 4 C's model, and this is a model that we use, especially when we're doing these empowerment workshops where we teach. It's what we call a mental toughness, if you can say. I hope that's a good thing, Brother Faisal, but it's a mental level of toughness that you have. And these were developed by academics. It's not mine or anything like that. They're from your textbooks. You know, when you study, you learn them. And in most, it's a very widely used model because it helps you to define and it helps you to measure what is your level of your mental toughness, what is your level of resilience when you have to face any form of issue. And this 4C model that I'm talking about is then linked with the other 3 C's that I'm going to talk about. And that 7 C's for me is what we need. So the first 4 that I spoke about are the C's for confidence, control, commitment, and challenge, right? So I have to be empowered enough when I'm reaching a certain level of empowerment that I know that I've got a level of confidence. That's your first C. I have a level of confidence to know that even though the situation I may be facing is difficult or is very challenging, I have this faith in myself and I have faith in my creators to know that I am going to get through this. I can and I will get through this. So you have that level of confidence. That's that C. The next one is from knowing that I have this level of confidence, I grow and I develop this level of the next C, which is your control. Because I have a level of confidence, I know I'm in control of things, I'm in control of the situation, and it is not going to control me. And that then leads me to my third C. And that's the third C there tells me that I am now committed. The C is for committed. I'm committed that I am going to get through this. I'm committed to this because I know that what I'm facing is going to lead to my growth. And that leads to your fourth, which is that I'm accepting the challenge. That C is for challenge. So each one of them is literally linked into the other. I develop this level of confidence as soon as something happens, because through my confidence, I learn that I'm in control. And when I'm in control, I then know that I'm committed. I'm committed to myself through my control measures. And when I'm committed in that way, I accept this challenge to better my circumstance. And once you've done that is when you come to the next 3 C's. Once you've done that, you reach the point of where I'm accepting this challenge to better my circumstance. It creates a level of the first C on your next 3, which is consciousness. And that level of consciousness is where you become mindful. And that is so key, Brother Faisal, because you have to be, it links very closely to self-aware. You have to be mindful of what is the emotion. And being self-aware, you need to know and identify what is that emotion that you are feeling versus how is your emotion going to impact somebody else. So you have this level of consciousness because you have that confidence, because you're in control, because you're committed, and because you've accepted the challenge. Your consciousness now teaches you what is this level of self-awareness I have and what is my level of emotion right now. And that builds up your compassion, which is your next C. And that compassion makes you rather empathetic to someone instead of reacting in a very negative light, where you have this ability to identify what you're feeling versus what the person that you're talking to or what the circumstance you're in actually needs from you. And what are the viewpoints that you have on this versus what others will come through. And then that leads us to your last C, which is the level of connectedness, which is so key because that, remember, everything we do every day, Brother Faisal, is about being connected. Even in your salah, you are connected to your Allah. Everything that we do is connecting. And very, very often, we as individuals lose connection with ourselves. We focus so much on the connection with that we have to have with people. And we focus so much on the validation we're seeking from people. We want everybody to be so happy and so proud. Some people go out and they actually become better and they want this and they want that and they grow to become whoever they want to nurture themselves to become specific professionals. But it's not because they have the passion. It's not because they want to do anything. It's purely because they want that validation. And when is that level where I'm wishing to do everything I can just so that I am validated and I am the best at this and people recognize me, then at that point you have lost connection. That connectedness is very key because that allows for your relationship measures to grow. And remember, at the beginning, we spoke about the emotional intelligence portion, and we said at some point, relationship management is key. And if you lose that level of connectedness with yourself, then your confidence level is going to automatically drop, which is the first C we spoke about. So there is a direct link between the first and the last. So even though the models that we talk about and teach are the 4 C's, I just kind of added the other 3 because for me, it works as a holistic C's. And that is how you would actually learn. How do I actually become better? How do I develop myself? And then, you can learn through these C's how to become a better version of you, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. In fact, excellent. I like the way you've explained that because, if you just gave me those 7 C's, I wouldn't have been able to sort of link them up as well.
Brother Faisal, are you with us?
Yes. Can you hear me? Okay. Anyway, it's time for an ad break. Let's take the break. We'll continue after this.
Plan your dream holiday with the
I can hear you
specialist
now, yeah.
World of Travel. As we pride ourselves in offering you the best in Hajj and Umrah, we also offer travel packages to the Middle East, Far East, and many more exotic destinations. Call our professional travel consultants now on 031 20 888 77 or view our website www.worldoftravel.co.za. Visit us at 44 Crescent Street as memorable journeys begin with World of Travel by Irshad Malik.
Looking for the most affordable family restaurant in Durban? Head on down to Fire and Ice in Overport. Enjoy breakfast deals from $39.90, killer steaks from $99.90, delicious pastas from R59.90, milkshakes from under R20, and all burger deals under $100. We've got something for everyone. Relax while the kids have fun in the play area, safe parking on site, and free delivery. Visit us at 460 Peter Makaba Ridge Road next to the Atrium, Overport City. Fire and Ice, where family dining meets fantastic flavor.
The Al Ansar Foundation, Da'wah, Tarbiyah, and Education, establishing the foundations of Islamic civilization in South Africa. Al Ansar International.
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور أحب الوفي الأمين الأغر فأهل الوفاء كلون السحاب وحسن الربيع وماء المطر أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور.
You're listening to Let's Chat with myself, FAIZAL SULEMAN, on Radio Al Ansar. Our topic for discussion: empowerment versus EQ versus you. Our special guest is Dr. Mehreen Mia. And we welcome your questions via WhatsApp on 060-904-1056. And yes, you are listening to us on 90.4 FM in Durban and 105.6 FM in Pietermaritzburg. Now, Mehreen, just prior to the ad break, you were explaining the 7 C's, and I did mention, I think we had a bit of a glitch. Sometimes these gremlins creep in. But yes, you were explaining that, each sort of C, falls into the next and to the next and to the next category, and that explains the 7 C's. And I think it's beautifully explained: confidence, control, commitment, challenge, consciousness, compassion, connectedness. Now, having said all of that, let's get back to empowerment. What are some of the stages of empowerment that we should know about?
Alhamdulillah, I think the first thing I'd like to say, Brother Faisal, is Jazakallah for being such a good audience, because you yourself took down the notes, and I'm very grateful for that, Alhamdulillah. Yes, and so, if you go back to the level of the stages of empowerment, okay, so I'm going to use a quick analogy. Let's say we have a little girl, and it's your daughter, and you're cutting maybe a piece of steak with a fork and a knife, and it's actually for her, so you're cutting it up into pieces, and all of a sudden this little girl says, I want to do it by myself. I want to do it by myself, and she wants to grab it from you. And then you look at this child, and the first thing you might want to say is, no, it's dangerous for you. But have you ever just paused to say, this child has a level of what? Enthusiasm, a level of self-determination. I want to try for myself. I want to do this for myself. And by the same token, and that's the little girl I'm talking about, everyone out there wants to do something for themselves, want to make their own decisions. They want to live the best of themselves. They want to live the best versions of themselves. They want to do everything that they can for themselves at some point, independently, happily, in peace, etc. This is kind of where we're going with this. So if we want to look at empowerment in itself, for me, every one of us should want that. We should want to live our best. We need to perform our best and just be our best. But from within for our journey, so that obviously we know that it needs to be for the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For that, we need to know empowerment requires a kind of holistic approach. And why I spoke about the little girl is very often, especially when there's children involved, we tend to let emotion override a thought. You know, you may come home from work and you may have a child niggling at you to say something. And you, because you're the parent who's come home and you're tired, you don't have the capacity to want to listen at that moment. So every time the child speaks, you will say, not now. And then the child tries to talk to you again and you will say, not now. And then the child says at the third time, you say, listen, I said not now. And then the child walks away. It's the same thing you've said in 3 different tones, yet the child has used the same tone to try and get your attention. Why I'm mentioning that is the approach that we have is so key for us to understand how this empowerment in stages works. If you took the pause when the child actually comes to you the first time and says something, instead of reacting to what your emotion of tiredness was, and rather looked at what should you be seeing when this child is looking at you in terms of this child's need for your love and time, it might have made your approach and your reaction differently. So you being in control of your emotion at that point in time might have created something better with you and this child, instead of the child being so, and you suddenly feeling bad because you realize you raised your voice, and then your emotions go all crazy as well, and so you start feeling bad about yourself. And why I'm mentioning that is because if you're listening right now, do you have the sense, and this is the first stage for me when it comes to being empowered, do you have the sense of willingness to be honest with yourself that I do this? I lash out easily. Do you have the sense of willingness to acknowledge I'm somebody who's very moody? Do you have the sense of willingness to know there's things about you, like we spoke about earlier, that is negative? There's stuff about you that's not good. It's actually hurting you. It's hurting those around you. Because nothing about you is ever going to alter for the better if you keep lying to yourself. If you don't have the willingness to want to get out of your comfort zone and face some of these hectic realities, which is what you have to do if you want to be empowered. You cannot come for life coaching. You cannot go to any NLP master and expect them to change you if you are not willing to change yourself. That willingness is the first stage of you becoming empowered. So are you willingly able to want to be realistic about you as you are now, to convert who you are now into something better for you later? Because automatically, when you have that willingness to want to learn, you have the willingness to want to grow who you can be, then you will be willing to make the sacrifices that will be necessary. And there will always be something that you will have to sacrifice in your comfort zone to make you better. And when you do become that empowered person after you do these exercises, you will sit back and you'll think, that sacrifice was worth it because I am so much better in the person that I am now. Sometimes, though, when you're trying to do these questions and you ask yourself what I've just asked, do you have that willingness to want to be honest? You might come up with little debates in your mind. You have this voice sometimes, Brother FAIZAL, that kind of negates what you're trying to do for yourself that may be good. So, you may be somebody who says, no, I'm at work, and yes, give me more responsibility because I can't take it on at work. But then I also don't want the added stress, so rather not. That may be you. But what do you want? Do you want the added responsibility? Because the stress is going to come with it. You have to identify. And when you're doing something like that, for example, the responsibility example I gave you, that is you actually competing with your own need. You have this inner need that you want to become better. You have this inner need that I want to find my fullest potential and grow myself, and that means more responsibility, so yes, give it to me. But then you compete with that need by saying, but I'm in this comfortable zone now and I don't have so much of stress, so I don't want the added stress later on. So these are things that you have to contemplate. And do I have the willingness to actually want to maybe take on stress with my responsibility to grow me in my career? So these are little things that you would have. And the one other thing you may encounter when you're at this stage of, finding your change is where we start to limit our belief system. We like to go back to saying somebody else is always to blame for something that has gone wrong with us. And that's a level of where you have to be willing to identify sometimes the blame is with you. Sometimes the problem may be with you. Sometimes everybody's reaction may be negative and you keep sitting there and thinking, but everybody's out to get me. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's actually something about your demeanor that might need to change. Are you willing to stop having these limiting beliefs about yourself and take ownership for who you are and try and figure out what about me can change for the better? Because then you can put things into context. And when you put things into context, then you are able to actually make things easier for you to understand and make things easier for other people to also react to you better. And when that happens, then we go back to the season. You build up the level of confidence and you take back control of yourself. So I think for everybody right now, the question is, am I mindful of myself? Am I mindful of me, that I'm willing to do what I have to do to make these negatives become positives to be the best version of me? And if you're willing to do that, that's your step number one. And your other stages become much more easier, inshallah.
Now, in pursuing our goals and trying to achieve our goals, sometimes we overcome with fear, with anxiety, with uncertainty, etc. How can we overcome this fear? Sorry, Marian, are you with us?
Brother Faisal, I'm going to ask you to please repeat your question. Sorry.
Okay, yeah. What happens is that when
I am with you. I can hear you now. Can you please just repeat the question for me, inshallah?
Yes, certainly. In trying to achieve our goals or pursue our goals, rather, we experience fear, anxiety, uncertainty, and a more fear of the unknown. How can we overcome that?
The number one key for me is to understand, where does everything come from? There's never an emotion that you're going to feel or experience that comes from nothing. So if you do have a level of anxiety, and these are words that are very thrown out there nowadays, anxiety and panic attacks, etc., people seem to actually self-diagnose nowadays. And anxiety, we must know, is something that doesn't just happen overnight. Anxiety is the level of something that's small that becomes bigger when it's not attended to. And so when you develop this level of anxiety, is because something that made you scared or created the sense of fear initially was something very small, and it grew into something to become that big, that created small little attacks that you had, and you felt like things, okay, I don't know, and you started to lose the sense of confidence in yourself. Your self-esteem started to drop, and then because of all these things, other things started to compound, and then you have this level of anxiety. So it never just happens. It's a growing something that develops over time. But when these things do occur, the first thing that happens with us normally is we cut ourselves down. We start to conform to what other people are saying negatively about us. So even if somebody, there's somebody you really admire, somebody you really care about is trying to tell you, but you are wonderful, but you are good, but you are fantastic, you are so good at what you're doing, it does not matter, because you have ingrained within yourself over a time period, over a long time period, that some people were always saying you are a failure. And this is why today, for example, when I go to the various schools to do the workshops that I do, I don't just talk to children. I talk to children with their parents in these workshops, because talking to children alone doesn't help. Parents also need to be taught. Sometimes the words that you use now are going to have an impact on these children for life. Many adults that we go and speak to, that come to us for counseling or for whatever that they need now, they come up with issues that they are grappling with regarding work, regarding their relationships, regarding their own relationships with their children. And you have to go back and figure out, where does it all stem from? Because everything we have to do must stem from something. And most often it stems from someone whether it was a teacher, God forbid, whether it was a parent, but someone throughout this person's journey kept on reminding them that they will become nothing, or that they are not worthy, or that they are failing, they will always be a failure. When you implant that in a child, no matter what good that child is going to be or do, that child is never going to feel that they are good enough. They're going to always think, I'm not good enough. I'm never going to be good enough. And eventually the whole world is going to appear as if they're saying the same thing. This is why it's so, so important for us to be careful what we say, how we say it, because it does impact. But to go back to your question about the fear factors start as soon as you fear something, do not let it just slide. We have to identify what things are, and always say, embrace your emotions, whatever they may be. Do not say, leave it, I'll leave it for now. Because when you leave it for now, it compounds. It's like you have a little carpet, Brother Faisal. You know these little small carpets you sometimes find at a door? Let's just say we're going to go through a whole house. It's a silly analogy, but it may work. Through a whole house, and we go and sweep up this house, right? And we take all the dust that's on this floor, and we're going to put it under this little carpet that's at a door.
Okay.
And eventually, if you do that over a period of time, what happens to that carpet? The dust is never going to be able to stay under the carpet anymore.
Absolutely.
It's going to eventually, the carpet itself will move over, and the dust is going to spread everywhere. So when you think, I'm going to leave it for now, I'm going to leave it for now, it's okay, they just said it today. Okay, it's okay, they keep saying that to me. Eventually, it's going to do just that. It's going to compound to a point where it's going to explode. And when it's gone in the wrong directions, how do you take it back? And that, for me, is the key factor. So one of the things I'm going to just use. It's fine. You can go on.
No, I like the analogy that you use. You know, it sort of demonstrates it beautifully. Everything's going to collect, but it's all going to explode.
Absolutely. So you rather control it properly. When you have the senses of emotions that are coming on that are negative, learn the skills that will help you to identify and be aware of what they are before they control you. Ultimately, everything, Brother Faisal, is about you being in control of things and things not being in control of you. That is what it's all about. Life is about that. If you look at life today, everywhere across the world, there's negatives. Right now, everyone who's probably listening to us is going through something. And at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, is whatever we're going through controlling me, or am I able to take control of it? And even if you feel like, how do I even control it? What is she talking about? They are means. It's about being willing to find these things and then going through the 7 C's, and then you find that level of confidence that allows you to grow through whatever you are facing.
Did you know what question I was going to ask you just now? Because you've just answered it.
Oh, sorry.
I was about to ask. No. Seriously, I was about to ask you, and it's quite coincidental that you touched on it. What strategies can help individuals build resilience in the face of adversity? And I think you've answered it. You've captured it.
And to think we're not in the same studio.
No, it's just like about, I think, 70 kilometers apart.
No, that's all.
Yeah. Now, I think, okay, I've got like 3 minutes to the ad break, but before I take that ad break, I can pose one more question to you. How does a person actually empower themselves emotionally?
So again, I go back to my keyword here, Brother Faisal, and that is mindfulness. If I'm mindful and aware, then I'll know what the correct reactions are to certain things. I know what my emotions are and what the triggers are. So mindfulness plays this very crucial role in how you develop the self-empowerment that you're looking to have. This concept of mindfulness is what you need to enhance that self-awareness that we spoke about earlier, because then you regulate yourself more efficiently. You enable yourself to know, how do I respond to challenges? How do I develop that sense of resilience we spoke about now? And that for me is key, because we're talking about the you that's in the topic, the end of our topic, and that is about self-empowerment. That's you. You're developing this and you're empowering yourself for you first before you can help and empower anybody else. So, there are many, many different ways, but I'm going to give you a quick analogy before your ad break. And I've heard this before. I can't right now figure out exactly where, but this was an analogy I heard and it stuck with me. So I'm going to share it very quickly with your listeners. So let's just say we're very hungry, Brother Faisal. I don't know, this happens very often with us, and we don't eat. And then suddenly when we do want to eat, whatever is there, we're going to try and have. So I go to the kitchen and I open up my fridge and I take out whatever I find. I say, okay, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea and maybe a sandwich, right? So I take out the cheese and I take out bread and I have everything ready and I take out my milk for my tea. And all of a sudden I see that the milk has gone bad and I see that my cheese has really got, mold on it and everything like that. Brother Faisal, you and I both know, are we going to use this? Are we going to use
Definitely,
this cheese? I doubt it. Why?
definitely
Because
not.
we know it's toxic for us. We know it's
Mhm,
toxic, yet we know we have hunger, right? So what we're going to do, we're rather going to do the alternate. We probably have the black tea and we'll just have the
yeah,
butter bread without the cheese.
mhm.
Have something. Why am I using this analogy? And I'm hoping every listener opens a fridge maybe and they're going to think about this analogy and learn from it. If you're not going to consume and eat something that is toxic for you, why would you allow anything else that's toxic for you to consume you?
Excellent.
If you know
Absolutely.
something that is toxic is going to go into your system and hurt you, you're not going to do it. So when
Mhm.
you know that there are things that are toxic around you and about other people, things are toxic, why would you allow that to take control of you? That's the question. I'm going to pause there because that's where we start with how do you empower yourself emotionally by knowing what's
Okay,
toxic for you.
absolutely. We'll get back to toxicity after the ad break. Do stay with us.
Station for Conversation, Radio Al Ansar.
There's nothing quite like the taste of a traditional family meal, and at the heart of every great dish is a key ingredient that brings it all together. That ingredient is Sunfoil pure sunflower cooking oil, made from only the finest sunflower seeds. It's a perfect way to enhance the taste of your family's favorite foods. Sunfoil cooking oil is more than just oil. It's the key to bring your family together over a delicious meal and making every bite taste better. Remember, the key ingredient to a great family meal is sunfoil. Tradition just tastes better.
Nando's at Saxony Westwood Mall is NIHT approved. Get ready to light up your taste buds with our legendary flame grilled chicken, the taste you trust. From juicy combos, mouth-watering burgers, wraps packed with flavor, bougie bowls, and platters that bring everyone together. We've got deals to make your mouth water. It's the OG of flame grilled goodness. Head on down to Nando's Westwood Mall, bringing the heat one bite at a time.
The Al Ansar Foundation, Dawah, Tarbiyah, and Education, establishing the foundations of Islamic civilization in South Africa.
أحب الوفاء بشتى الصور أحب الوفي الأمين الأغر فأهل الوفاء كلون السحاب وحسن.
Let's chat on Radio Al Ansar with myself, Faisal MJ Suleiman. Yes, an absolutely beautiful Friday evening here in Durban. And we're discussing empowerment versus EQ versus you. And our special guest this evening is our very own presenter, Dr. Marine Mia, who is a global goodwill ambassador. And this was awarded by the GIA USA. And she's affiliated to the United Nations, holding dual honorary doctorates in humanities, that's in psychology, education, and humanitarianism. Yeah, well, those are some words we use, some big words we use for a Friday night. But, Sister Mehreen, prior to the ad break, you spoke about us not embracing that toxicity. Let's just expand on that a little.
So, and these are not high words, and I would love to please request you, Brother Faisal, if you don't mind, to stop saying doctor, just say Sister Mehreen will be fine. So, when I talked about the toxicity earlier on, I mentioned an analogy of what you're going to eat. If something is toxic for you, you're not going to actually consume it. If people are toxic for you, what do you do? If emotions become toxic that are around you, what are you going to do? And I'm asking these things, and probably they're rhetorical questions, but they're things for you to think about. How often are you in a space where something is going on that you wish you could just do something about, but you feel stuck? How do you unstuck yourself? So the whole idea to become empowered emotionally is to learn, to unlearn, and then relearn. I'll say that again. So you learned something, and then you unlearn that, and then you relearn. Because sometimes we become so engrossed in who we are, we become comfortable. Even though we know there's so many negatives about that comfortable being we are. And when you start to become an empowered person emotionally, and you start to be in control of your emotions, then there's some things about you when you read, when you go through those 7 C's and when you hit that willingness, I'm willing to do this, You reach a level of where you're going to unlearn some of your own traits. You unlearn some of your own habits. You unlearn some things about you. And then you relearn new things that define and redefine you in your scopes, in your roles, in whatever you are doing. That is when you learn, how do I empower myself through learning to unlearn and relearn. So if you're somebody who suddenly through the unlearning finds that there's some things about me I'm now not going to anymore, I'm taking back control of myself, I'm going to do these things, and you find what those things are, your attitude towards yourself becomes more positive. So no matter what situation you start to face, you face this positive attitude. And then you start just because you have this level of confidence from your C's, you start to realize I have goals, I have potentials. So why not tap into what my potential may be, grow it so that I can reach my goal? And when I say, there's reasonable goals I'm talking about, we're not going to set unrealistic goals for ourselves. We need to set goals that we know we can achieve. So little goals to make the big one happen. Don't go for the big goal and then you fall flat in the first stage and then you feel like I can't do this. Set yourself realistic goals. So when you want to empower yourself emotionally, set goals that are realistic, small ones at a time. So through your positive attitude, when you're knowing, I don't want toxicity anymore, I'm going to develop myself better, that positive attitude will help you to reach each of those smaller goals easily. And through doing that, you build a network. And when you're building this network, you automatically will be attracting more positive people to you. And the negative people that are around you will almost by themselves kind of not wilt away, but they'll distance themselves a little bit. And once that starts to happen, there's something else that happens when you empower yourselves emotionally. You practice care for yourself. Very often clients come through our doors, people that come for therapy and counseling are people that stopped caring for who they are because they're constantly caring for others. That's also where we fall flat because we forget the importance of the I. I is individual. You as an individual, it's key for you to learn how to look after yourself through everything. Giving and giving and giving, at some point there's burnout for you. What happens? And the other very important part about how do you empower yourself emotionally, Brother Faisal, for me, is the talk, the self-talk. How do I talk to myself? When something is going wrong, what do I say to myself? When some things are going right, what do I say to myself? Do you know how many people are out there that even I've met or that are listening to us right now are people that even positive stuff that happens to them, they somehow find a fault in it. It's like they've grown into this someone who knows there has to be something wrong even if something is right. That is you pulling yourself down. That's where the willingness to get out and unlearn that behavior becomes important so that you can relearn, I am in control of me and I'm starting to use positive self-talk to better myself. And I'm going to learn how do I become assertive in a respectable way, firstly for me. Because it's going to take a level of you being assertive with you to change certain things about you. So if you want to make that learn, unlearn, relearn happen, it has to start with how you develop that positive attitude and ends up with how do I talk to myself? How do I talk to myself to engage myself, to understand, be aware, to know how do I manage myself, etc. So all the things that I spoke about earlier with emotional intelligence comes into play now. And this is where you see that direct link then between using your emotion and to empower yourself and how empowering yourself actually helps you control the emotion, inshallah.
Inshallah. I'm just still trying to just I'm grappling with learn, unlearn, relearn. And just to know that I'm understanding you correctly,
Yes.
I identify my weaknesses. I
Yes.
identify the negativity. I
Yes.
then discard those weaknesses, discard that negativity,
Mhm.
and then I empower myself with positiveness and, of course, some strengths I bring back into my life. Is that correct?
Yes. So I'm going to just change one word that you've used, Brother Faisal. So it's not discard. I'm going to embrace what they may have been if they're negative, and then we're going to grow through them and then unlearn what is a bad behavior to relearn what is a good one. So you're almost replacing it with something better.
Okay. How
Yeah.
can I then transform failures into opportunities for growth?
I think the key factor for that would be how do I perceive it? If you're perceiving failure as something that is just a norm, then it's never going to be an opportunity for growth. You have to be able to be at a level of self-awareness where you know yourself enough. You have enough confidence within yourself to know that if something is going wrong and I've done everything I could to make this thing right and it's still not happening, a certain level of your confidence would tell you, I put 200% into this. If it's not working, then there's a possible reason for that, but doesn't mean I got to stop. And that becomes your window of opportunity to learn. I learned some things, for example, I've learned how to pull this thing together, so I put my effort into it. It didn't work out. Doesn't mean I stop. I then go back and I maybe take a few minutes to introspect. What did I do? What were my steps? Analyze them, reflect on them, reflect on you through them. And when you do the reflection, you try and understand which one of those steps maybe could have been the wrong one. And then I unlearn that negative step or the wrong step, and then I start to relearn a new method of trying to do things until I get the win I want. An opportunity is always there for growth. Sometimes the worst space that you may be in is actually your window of opportunity just waiting to happen. And many people sit there and they say, why me? And I say, convert that to say, why not me? If Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you any form of difficulty, it's only because He Himself in His wisdom and in His mercy knows that you are His slave and He knows you're going to get through it. He knows what the outcome is going to be. So if He Himself has so much of faith in you, why do you not have this faith in yourself? You owe it to yourself.
Absolutely. Now let's link all of this to the individual. What are some of the characteristics of someone empowered and emotionally intelligent?
Well, I think, emotional empowerment is, like we spoke about from the beginning to now, is almost having skills. It's having like a set of skills that you have. And this set of skills will help you to identify things. It will help you to express yourself. It will help you to regulate your emotions more effectively. But if you are somebody who's that in tune with you, and if you are somebody who is empowered and you are intelligent about your emotions, so we'll say you are emotionally intelligent, then you are somebody who, firstly, in my book, is someone who was really embracing change very well. If some things have to alter, the discomfort doesn't challenge you. It actually becomes good for you and you embrace changes. You will be somebody who has a very strong sense of self-awareness because you are key. That's the key factor. You are knowing when things are going wrong, this is what I have to do to make it right. If you have this level of empowerment, you also would have the sense of knowing, because I'm self-aware, I know how to manage my relationships better. So you would know how to act, when to act, and how to react, and when to react, if to react at all. So you would know these things. The other thing is, if you are somebody very emotionally intelligent, you would know and you would show empathy is key. Empathy is important towards other people, not because you want anything in return, but because this is part of your characteristic traits. And through that, you will see that progress for you is something you want to keep pursuing. We don't want to pursue perfection. We need to pursue how to progress, how to grow who we can be, because we want balanced lives. So if you are also an individual who's, empowered, I look at myself sometimes and I think, I know me and I am very curious. I want to keep learning. I keep wanting to learn new things. I think, inshallah, I will keep learning until my demise. But that is me. That having that eagerness to learn is also something that makes you become more emotionally intelligent, because the more you learn, the more you know how to understand you better and how you understand other things better. And when that happens, alhamdulillah, you will sit back and you will say, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for everything that I have. And you will also say, alhamdulillah, for the difficulties you face. All the difficulties that you will be facing at some point, when you are empowered, when you are fully, truly empowered from within yourself, for you first, and when you are an emotionally intelligent person, no matter what difficulty you face, you will still say shukr to Allah for that difficulty, because you know in Allah's wisdom that difficulty is placed before you by Him, so He will get you through it as well. And when you show gratitude, we all know, inshallah, you will get more in return.
Inshallah. Now, I heard of a term, emotional intelligence hijacking. What is this? Can you explain this term to us, please?
Yes, it was very funny that that you're saying it like that. When we look at, or when we hear hijacking, we think the worst. So emotional hijacking is something that is not new, but it is fairly. And emotional hijacking is all about, when your emotion kind of takes over you, it hijacks you, literally. And it
Oh,
leads
okay.
you to actually act and react in ways that are regrettable. So the hijack actually begins when there's a trigger. So, for example, that is why the self-awareness becomes so important when you want to become empowered and you want to become emotionally intelligent, because you need to know what your triggers are. So something would trigger you. For example, it could be a coworker that maybe, publicly criticizes you, or you're having a disagreement with a colleague at work, or whatever it is, or somebody points out a personal failure of yours and you're not happy with that. So these are things that would be the triggers. And this creates an emotion inside you. And because it's such a quick emotion and it's a harsh emotion, an immediate one, it hijacks you. It hijacks you to the point of where you don't know the fight or flight mode. You don't know what the reaction is going to be. So it hijacks you off your thought process. It hijacks you off everything and how to react. And most often your reaction becomes emotional because you're reacting with emotion to something of emotional. And that doesn't really help because it actually makes things worse for you. So, for example, I'll just give you a random example. If you run into a bear, Brother Faisal, okay, Allah forbid that this ever happens, but if you run into a bear, right, your emotional response is going to be fear. It's going to be, you're going to automatically signal this brain of yours to say, listen, this is an unpleasant situation. I want to try and avoid this bear somehow. I don't want to be near him. And your brain's response is going to try and prepare your body to either act against this bear or escape from this bear. And suddenly your heart rate is going to increase and you're going to have this rapid breathing start happening. And then you start to have this shutting down of your body functions because you need to preserve some energy now. You don't know what to do. So I know it's an extreme example, but we taught this fight or flight mode from very early ages, and we encounter it on different levels. Sometimes if you're stuck in traffic, Brother Faisal, these are things that happen with you. You get irate, you get irritated. But as harsh as the word hijack is, it's not all bad. Okay. So in an emergency like this bear situation I spoke about, you won't want your brain to actually spend time analyzing the situation. You have to first see what kind of bear, how high it is, how large is it, where's the nearest. You don't have time to analyze. You need to act. So the hijack is where the emotion takes control and you don't know what to do. You kind of have a sense of paralysis to know what happens next. What is my next move? So it automatically, the emotional hijack actually has a tendency to create a physiological change in you. So your body reacts and it takes over where you don't know what to do next. But it's not all lost, right? There are, how we have the hijacking that was bad. So we also have hacking that happens in the world, unfortunately. And hacking, I know because I was hacked like 4 weeks ago and it was the worst situation. But when we're talking about hijack, the emotions being hijacked, there's also hacks that we can use. We call it hacks. You hack certain methods to avoid these hijacking situations. So as soon as you get into a position of being in a space where you think, oh, you know what, I can't take this, or you're stuck in this traffic jam, for example, you need to first identify the emotion, name it. Call it out for what it is. That's what we're trying to say. Call it out for what it is. Hey, anger, this is you. And then change the setting for what. If you're sitting in traffic, picture something else. Talk the anger through to something else. Or maybe even do another hack that you can use is do a quick math problem. Like 10 plus 10 is 20, 20 times 2. Just do something that will bring your focus back to reality. So that the emotion stops being in control and your brain starts to come back into control. And when it comes back into control, you somehow find that it just hacks it through, literally. It hacks through the hijacking and you come back on par with, this is how I should react, as opposed to just reacting very quickly. So it's, you can do a whole workshop in emotional hijacking, what to do about it. But in terms of just for now and with the time we have, I think, inshallah, that might have just explained it a little bit.
I'm glad you didn't say, you must first consider whether it's mother bear, father bear, or baby bear.
I'm glad for that too, for sure.
Yeah. Having discussed all of this, can you maybe just summarize, what we've discussed and draw the link between empowerment, emotional intelligence, and you?
Sure. Our emotions are really good at exposing what our fears are. And our emotions are also very good at exposing what our desires may be. And sometimes when we have these desires and fears exposed, it can be very intimidating to some people. But for true emotional empowerment to happen, we need to be able to learn to sit with our true selves. And that's the key for me with today's program and topic, is to be so in tune with myself and to love who I am for who I am, flaws and everything, because this is me and I need to be able to change things about me. Every one of us does. None of us is perfect because, like I said, we're not pursuing perfectionists. We're actually pursuing progress to grow. So for your true emotion to take place, you have to want to learn about your true self. Be willing to do that. And then while, it doesn't necessarily sound like fun to have to be willing to unlearn certain things about you because they were comfortable, crucial. It's crucial because we know that as Muslims especially, but for every human being out there, no matter what your religion or whatever caste or whatever stature you're in the world, every one of us needs to decode our emotion and define what is my priority. What are my attainable goals? What are my triggers that actually make me become what I don't like to be? And these are little things that you have to ask yourself. The introspection is key. The reflections are key, because that is the stuff you need to fuel what kind of existence do I want to have? What exactly is my purpose? Why am I here? What do I want to do? What is my best? You're never going to be the best until you find you. And that is why the essence of everything today about empowerment, emotional intelligence, is about you. Everything sits with you as an individual. And there is, there's something I teach everybody that I meet, and that is that there's an equation that's called I is equal to something. And the I for me is very important. It's a very important letter of the alphabet. So I is equal to importance, and I is equal to individual. And very often, Brother Faisal, we give away our importance of our individuality. We do that very often. And as soon as we give away that importance of who we are, who am I as a person for me, and then that's where the problems start, because then I don't know me. And that's when the unlearning becomes difficult, because then who am I? Am I defined by what so-and-so says about me? Am I defined by what so-and-so thinks about me? This is the key. And if you are somebody who's defined by that, then you too can get help to stop that, because you need to identify you for you. That's the link between it all. The link between each of these words is I want to be the most empowered being so that I can be truly intelligent about my emotions and the best version of me for my journey, for my life, inshallah.
Excellent. Sister Marian, I want to thank you for joining me in the program this evening. It's been absolutely, I feel empowered already having this chat with you and having heard you shared with us. I'm sure you have a message for our listeners.
I do. I've said so much, I think, from the start of this. I'm thinking, I wonder who's tired of the voice. But, this is the first step. And acknowledging and knowing that I need something to change about me is your first step to making things happen. So when you finally realize one very important point, you will realize that this is going to be your ultimate. And that's the importance of you as you. Everyone needs to understand that for you to develop yourself and empower you, you will only be able to do that when you realize that you are actually that very active participant in your own life. It is you who's that active participant that matters. You're not a puppet in a play. You're not a game piece on any giant board of a game. Many people get stuck in this mindset that everything happens only to them, and they have very little control of their emotions, and they don't have control of the behavior. It's not, you have control of everything. And it's about you learning, how do I take control of these things so I learn to respond to things properly. So you may feel this initial emotional response arise within you, but it's up to you. Where does that emotion go from what I'm feeling? And I call it, lots of us call it emotional mastering. So this kind of emotional mastery allows you, to actually have feelings that are present, that are validated, and that you learn from. Because when you learn from these emotions, it empowers you. When you learn from yourself, it empowers you. When you keep growing, you're growing yourself. That's self-empowerment. And these things help you to implement positive changes in your life. And that's what we need. Especially when things go wrong in our lives, we need to learn, how do I come back? How do I come back onto my path so that I'm able to keep myself going? And remember that we always have a choice. You always have a choice about what to do with any situation. You have a choice about what to do with your emotions. And the crux of the whole thing is how you actually fuel that is up to you. How much of fuel you give or don't give your emotion will determine what your reactions are and how empowered you can actually be in any given situation. And I think my last sentence to everybody would be, just stay true to who you are, because you are a gift from Allah and you will return to Allah, inshallah. And you want to be the person that goes back to Him, inshallah, as the best version you can, inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, and thank you so much for joining me on the program. That we spoke to Sister Mehreen Mia, and yes, she spoke to us about empowerment versus EQ versus you. Mehreen, thank you very much for joining me on the program, and inshallah, enjoy the rest of the week. All the best to you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, I think we lost the link there. Anyway, Zach Umar, thank you for engineering for me in Durban. Suhail Hanif, thank you for engineering in Johannesburg, in Peter Marisburg. Sorry,
are you there?
In Peter Marisburg, and of course
We do
Hazrat
have
Kota.
gremlins every Friday evening, by the way, to all listeners. They should know this by now.
Listening to is Ikra Wafam, and that's going to be with Brother A.K. Muhammad. That's a tafsir of the Holy Quran, and of course, let's look forward to it and let's derive the necessary benefit. Do enjoy the weekend. I'm going to be back with you tomorrow morning, inshallah ta'ala, at 8 o'clock on Rise and Shine. So till then, from myself, FAIZAL, MJ Suleiman, and the Let's Chat team, it's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
24/7, 365.
My faith in you will never fade. Master of the day of judgment and the creator of you and me. His ever warm and lasting love is what I need through all this madness, to leave a calming in my heart. Whenever you call him, he's there. If ever you need him, he's there. Right by your side.